Asian American itself is such a recent invention as a label, as a category of identity. It's only about 60 some years old, and it's always been in flux, even from the very beginning. So, who counts as Asian Pacific American? That has evolved over time. To understand the origins of Asian American, Native Hawaiian, Pacific Islander Heritage Month, as it's called now, we really have to backtrack all the way to the 1970s. The 1970s is this really exciting moment when Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders, for the very first time, play an active role in shaping policy. The two key factors for understanding how the Asian American 1970s came about was really the Black freedom movement. That is the dedicated insistence of Black Americans for racial justice that really had this incredible momentum through the middle of the 20th century. The second factor is actually what's called the Asian American movement. This was a grassroots, nationwide political mobilization of people of different communities and backgrounds. At the time, mostly Japanese Americans, Chinese Americans, and Filipino Americans. The Asian American movement had two big inspirations. One was Black Power, and the other one was the anti-war movement. That is the kind of groundswell of opposition to the United States military interventions in Southeast Asia. A lot of young people are really at the forefront of that. Students, for instance, at San Francisco State Strike in 1967, 1968, they pushed their administration to establish the nation's first school of ethnic studies. Because of the Black freedom movement, the civil rights movement, affirmative action, there's a small but growing number of Asian American and Pacific Islander employees of the federal government. One of those goals, in fact, was to push the federal government to establish an Asian Pacific American Heritage Week. So at that time, it was a week, and I think in a lot of ways, the Hispanic, Latino, Latinx community set that template in 1968. That's when the U.S. saw its first Hispanic Heritage Week. There are two women in particular that come to lead this charge. Their names were Jeannie Ju and Ruby Moy. Congress eventually passed a joint resolution to recommend that early May be designated as Asian Pacific American Heritage Week. Frank Horton, that Ruby Moy worked with, was one of the principal co-sponsors, as were Asian American members of Congress, Senator Daniel Inouye, Senator Spark Matsunaga, Representative Norman Mineta. In 1979, President Jimmy Carter issues a proclamation declaring the nation's first Asian Pacific American Week to be in May 1979. May was chosen because it marked the anniversaries of two important events. The first was the very first time a Japanese immigrant arrived and set foot in the United States as far back as 1843. In 1869, the Transcontinental Railroad was completed in the month of May, and Chinese workers built most of the western portion of the Transcontinental Railroad. By the early 1990s, the first president, George Bush, expanded a week into a month.
In the support of Jeannie Ju and Ruby Moy, we established Asian Pacific American Heritage Week. And now I'm proud to take one more step and proclaim this May to be the first Asian Pacific American Heritage Month. But
that really suggests the growing political influence and power of Asian American and Pacific Islander groups. We can have the fun parties and cultural displays, thinking about how we can best make use of this Heritage Month that so many community organizers worked so hard for in the 1970s to bring that opportunity to us.